I'm Vinny Politan. Great to have you with us tonight here on Closing Arguments, live from Fairfax County, Virginia, in front of the Fairfax County courthouse, where today Johnny Depp versus Amber Heard, day one. And when you're usually watching a trial on court TV, it's pretty easy to figure out who the victim is. In most cases, we cover murder trials, and when you have a murder case or an investigation and you've got a crime scene, it's pretty easy to figure out who the victim is. It's the guy who got shot. It's the woman who was strangled. It was the person who was bludgeoned to death. Not a complicated concept to say, okay, this is the victim in this case. Now, we've seen recently that's not always super clear. In the trial of Kyle Rittenhouse, which we covered on Court TV, the whole word victim took on a different meaning because no one was allowed to say the word victim inside the courtroom during the course of the trial because Kyle Rittenhouse claimed self-defense. Yes, he shot and killed two people, shot a third who didn't die. They were shooting victims, but they weren't crime victims because at the end of the day, that jury came back and said there was no crime. So in that case, the judge said you couldn't use the word victim. It wasn't clear who was the victim. It turns out it was actually Kyle Rittenhouse, who was shooting and killing two people and a third in self-defense. Now, let's take a look at what's happening here in Fairfax County, Virginia. Johnny Depp and Amber Heard. The big question really in this case, in this trial for this jury, is who is the victim? They were married. They had a very volatile relationship. There's a lot of accusations being thrown back and forth. But for this jury inside this courtroom and for this case, it's really about who's the victim. It's not clear. It's not. It's going to be up to the jury to tell us who the victim is. Now, Amber Heard went to court before the divorce settlement. Black eyes, got a protective order, but then she dismissed those charges. And she said, no, not going forward with anything. But at some point, she claimed to be a victim. And then there's Johnny Depp, who has brought this lawsuit against Amber Heard. And he's brought this lawsuit saying he's really a victim on two counts. One, he's a victim of defamation. He's been accused of being an abuser when he's not. So he's claiming to be a victim there. He's also claiming, and this was the part of this case, I think, that has taken a turn that's a little different, right? It's a defamation case. You accuse me of being something I'm not, I'm suing you. But he's taken it a step further and said, not only did you lie about me, but I, Johnny Depp, am the victim of domestic abuse by you, Amber Heard. And today, opening statements inside the courtroom, and in opening statements, both sides tell their story. They lay it out for the jury, tell them exactly what they intend to prove during the course of this trial. And one thing that Johnny Depp and his team want to prove to this jury is that Johnny Depp is a victim. Take a listen.
The evidence will show that Ms. Heard went to great lengths to win him over by playing the doting girlfriend. And it worked up with her. And over time, the real Miss Heard began to emerge. She would berate him, scream at him. He would try to appease her, and sometimes, just sometimes, things would get better. But it would all. The evidence will show that Mr. Depp started coping with Miss Heard in the same way he did as a child. Avoid the conflict. But his trying to leave enraged Miss Heard. She would resort to physical violence. And you're going to hear that when Ms. Heard got violent, Mr. Depp would just retreat. In her words, Ms. Heard's words, he would split. You will not see a single photograph of the vast majority of the abuse alleged by Ms. Heard. Not one. And there is not a single photograph or video showing Mr. Depp becoming physically violent towards Ms. Heard. The only medical report of an injury during their relationship was a severe one, and it was sustained by Mr. Depp. After an argument shortly after their marriage, while the couple was in Australia, she berated him, And when he tried to leave, she became violent. She became so violent, in fact, she threw a vodka bottle at him that hit his hand and exploded. It severed the end of one of his fingers. You will learn that there came a time when Mr. Depp was done.
So on May 21st, Mr. Depp came by the apartment that he shared with Ms. Heard in the Eastern Columbia building, or the ECB, as some people refer to it, to tell her that, to pick up his things, and to say goodbye. There is no dispute that soon after Mr. Depp ended things with Ms. Heard and left the apartment on May 21st, he got on a plane to head out on a European tour, a music tour, for months with his band, the Hollywood Vampires. You will hear from the police officers who responded to a 911 call on May 21st after Mr. Depp left. The police officers will testify that they saw no injuries on Ms. Heard, nor did the police officers see any of the property damages that you will hear Ms. Heard claims existed in the apartments that evening. And you will hear those officers under oath testify that there was no violence and there was no crime. You will also hear from multiple witnesses who, like the police officers, saw Ms. Heard between May 21 and May 26. Those are the crucial days between the alleged incident and the day she walked into court with her lawyer and got an ex parte order. And those witnesses will testify that they saw her without any marks, any signs of injury on her face. Ultimately, this trial is about clearing Mr. Depp's name of a terrible and false allegation. We ask you in the next several weeks to please carefully consider the evidence, assess the reliability and credibility of that evidence, and to make your own determination about what actually happened between Mr. Depp and Ms. Heard.
Amazing turn in all of this. Johnny Depp not just saying Amber Heard lied about him, but saying Amber Heard was abusing Johnny Depp. Let me bring in Court TV legal correspondent Chanley Painter with me here outside the courthouse. She was in the courtroom today. I was in there as well. To me, this is a big part of this case. You know, you say it's defamation. It's not about defamation. It's about domestic violence and who the victim is here. And they are painting a picture of Amber Heard as being the aggressor in this relationship.
They are, Vinny, that she was the perpetrator of the violence in the relationship. She was the instigator, and she manipulated Johnny Depp when he would retreat or threaten to leave the marriage. The opening statement even included the fact that they're going to call their marriage counselor to the stand, who, in treating them as a couple, said she was the one, she was the aggressor.
That's amazing.
And
wait. Let's sit on that for a second. The marriage counselor for Johnny Depp and Amber Heard is going to get inside the courtroom and speak. To me, that is a big witness. Big witness. Huge
witness for the inside glimpse from a third-party perspective. That'll be really important to this jury in making that decision. We're going to hear from them. Also, doctors and nurses who treated both Johnny Depp and Amber Heard over their years together. The contention was that, Johnny Depp, of course, being the victim, but that the injuries that Amber Heard lied about kind of flipped the script. Like what she was perpetrating on Johnny, what she now says, oh, she was the victim. So it's almost as if she's reversing roles in her story in these allegations.
And you talk about roles. I mean, their perspectives and what we heard today in that courtroom couldn't be more opposite, right? It's one extreme and it's another extreme. So here's the question, though. Johnny Depp wanted to leave the marriage. So he's saying it was his idea to leave the marriage because of the abuse and what was going on.
Right. So the picture that Depp's attorneys painted was that Heard wooed Johnny Depp. She saw him as a target, someone wealthy, someone who had power, and she manipulated him with her womanly ways into marrying her to benefit her career and to benefit her financially. And when he threatened to leave her and file for divorce, she retaliated, making up these allegations, pointing to him as a domestic abuser. And that's what instigated this entire thing. That is the story of Depp's attorneys.
That's an interesting story, right? Because Johnny Depp, I want to leave you, and all right, you're leaving me. Okay, now I'm going to turn this around because I'm going to no longer be Mrs. Johnny Depp. Right. Or she's Amber Heard, but I'm not going to be Johnny Depp's wife. We're not going to be together. Let me bring in my other guest to get a little perspective on this. Janelle Weinstein, family law attorney, joining us tonight from River Edge, New Jersey. Always have to disclose when Janelle's on the show that we worked in the same courthouse as young attorneys. She was a clerk for the judge that I appeared in front of all the time. Great to see you, Janelle. Also with us, Dr. Nadim Karim, who is a forensic psychiatrist, criminologist. He's in Los Angeles, so he's in the middle of all this stuff, right, out in L.A. All right. Janelle, let me start with you. Family law, when a couple breaks up, things get nasty. Things get really nasty. How common is it for both sides to be accusing each other of domestic violence, of being the victim of abuse by the other spouse?
It is unfortunately very common, because when the relationship breaks down and they get to that point where they're looking to have and get divorced, they start to have a lot of pressure, a lot of things happen in the house, unfortunately.
Let me ask you a quick follow-up on that, Janelle, because this is what a lot of people are going to say. The lawyer told you to make it up so you get a better settlement. The lawyer told you to make it up so we get custody of the kids. What's the truth?
The truth is a lawyer would never do that. And the fact of the matter is a client will come in, or they'll call the police, whatever the case may be, and allege that there's this abuse. It's not for the lawyer to make that decision. But if there in fact is a allegation that's made and they feel very concerned, they have to report it. And the problem becomes generally when people are at this place in their relationship that things get very heated and very frustrated. I don't know if this was the case here. There may have been a prior history of this volatility. But the fact is, when they're coming to this point where they want out, there is a lot of emotion. There's money involved. And in other cases, not this case, there are children involved. And the perspectives get very skewed. The personalities get very heated. And sometimes there is violence, and sometimes there's the allegation of violence that's not actually true.
Okay, Dr. Nadim Karim in L.A. You heard what Chanley Painter reported tonight, that the counselor for Johnny Depp and Amber Heard is going to come into the courtroom and testify. Number one, I've never seen that before. It may happen all the time. I don't know. But what do you expect to hear from the counselor? And does this counselor become that third party that becomes the voice that this jury may listen to and say, okay, here's what was really happening?
I think it's fascinating. Does it happen? It does. I mean, you do see therapists, psychiatrists, doctors get on the stand, Vinny, but the uniqueness of this particular witness, as you indicated in your opening remarks, really comes down to her or him, whoever the marriage counselor is, identifying Amber as the aggressor. I mean, think about that for a second, right? That is unparalleled in my experience. I worked on hundreds of domestic violence cases, and the nuance there is she's going to have to show, or he's going to have to show, that Johnny Depp suffered from some type of PTSD or chronic anxiety in relation to his now ex-wife's actions. And I think that's fascinating, because the cases that I've worked on, chronic anxiety and PTSD are really, really important in terms of explaining to a jury who is the victim, what injury was established, and not only medical injuries, but mental health trauma. And that's why I think it's going to be fascinating, in response to your question, to have this marriage counselor come forward and say, in fact, there's trauma not only towards the victim, the female victim here, but in fact, the male victim, in this case, Mr. Depp, has suffered equal, if not more intense, psychological trauma in the form of chronic anxiety and PTSD. It's going to be fascinating to see what happens in that regard. And I can't wait to hear this the testimony of this witness.
Powerful stuff, really giving you an inside look at this relationship. Okay, Janelle and the doctor staying with us throughout the hour. When we come back, what is seen inside the courtroom? There are a lot of supporters for Johnny Depp here in Fairfax, Virginia.